the Envision Canada, which is an initiative of the Alliance in Canada. And a little bit about me, I'm actually a second generation Korean Canadian, which means my parents immigrated here from South Korea in the late 70s. And so I've lived in Ontario my entire life. And I am married. So my husband, Randy, we've been married for 12 years now. We actually got married on Halloween, which we call Hallelujah Night. And then together we actually have 2 kids. So Timothy is 8 years old. He is entering into grade 4. And Amelia is 6 years old and she's in grade 1. So we've literally just launched them into the beginning of school, which we're thrilled about. And my role, so I currently serve as the director of Envision Canada, which is such a joy and a privilege. I've been serving in this role for almost 2 years now, but have been with Envision from its beginning, which was almost 6 years ago now. So that's a little bit about me.
Wow, so interesting and so nice to have you from Canada. And thank you for letting us know that information about you. We're also, the people that follow us on these Instagram lives usually see Beatrice to join today. She won't be able to do it. For sure, we miss her, but you can send her love, and for sure she's missing to be with us today as well. So, and thank you so much. And thank you, Ben Sokir, for your comment on YouTube. I'm also checking out YouTube. So Ben is from there. So nice to have them, to have him there. So you are from, you're living in Ontario, Canada, have kids.
Yeah.
And how is that you start serving with the Alliance in Canada? How was that journey, that path that with you?
Yes. Okay. So here's the story. I've actually been serving with the Alliance. I'm a boomerang. So I started back in 2008. And this is after graduating from university. I studied business and psychology at Wilfrid Laurier. And after that, all I knew was I wanted to work with people. I had 2 co-op experiences. One was in a large corporation called Ontario Power Generation, where I was one of 700 HR employees. And then the second co-op experience was with a small little firm, it was called IntelliTactics. It was a security software startup in Kitchener-Waterloo. And at the end of my education, I realized I have no idea what I want to do. I just want to work with people. So that led me to apply to a recruiting firm, which was located Midtown Toronto, right at Yonge and St. Clair. And they actually offered a role in a startup, another startup, where it was called Worldwide Work, and it was attached to an existing executive recruitment firm that was long established. And so I joined the team and I served there and I worked there for 3 years, progressively working my way through the ranks, I would say, of the career ladder. And that's when I received, I guess, a sense of call to actually abandon that particular workplace and to join my church ministry full time. And that was a significant move. I was 27 years old at the time. And I served at my local church for a year, and it literally felt like heaven on earth. I was so amazed that this even existed, that this was my job, that I could serve God full time. Well, unfortunately, that only lasted a year, and I ended up into a desert period during that time where I was unemployed. I was searching and felt really, really lost about what my next steps would be. And I found myself asking God, like, do I re-enter into the marketplace environment at that time, or do I look and wait on you for another ministry? Because I know that this is a call that you've given to me. So after 6 months of wandering and being unemployed, I found a job posting on a local seminary for the Alliance in Canada. And it was for their global ministries team. And it was all about recruitment and development of international workers. So I had no idea about missions. I had no idea about denomination ministry, but I knew a little bit about recruitment. So I remember applying and just thinking, Lord, if it's your will, like, let this be. And back then it was such a slow process. Like, I was waiting for months, from one little application till the point finally where I got an interview and then another interview. And so I joined the Alliance in 2008. I served in their global ministries department. I was their administrative assistant for the recruitment arm of global ministries. And I stayed there. It was incredible, eye-opening. Wow, God really expanded my worldview at that time. I got to meet such incredible people, all sensing their own unique calls for God and their purpose. And then I left. And so I left after 3 years, and I was kind of, re-entering school. I went back into seminary. I started a family during the 5-6 year window. And the story of Envision actually happened totally unexpectedly. I moved into a new neighborhood here in Woodbridge, and it's minutes away from my former colleague who I used to serve with at the Alliance in Canada. And so I reached out to her for coffee, and I said, do you want to meet for coffee? Let's catch up about life and about ministry, what God's doing in your life. And literally the day before we met for coffee, the posting for Envision's logistics coordinator role had opened up. And this was a role that she herself was interested in applying for at that time. But after our coffee meeting, she said, Fran, your name is written all over this role. You need to apply. And the situation I found myself in at that time was I was home. I was on maternity leave with Amelia, my youngest daughter, and I was scheduled and headed to go back into another local church ministry. But I just felt the pull to check it out. And so I pressed send on my application and was hired over the weekend. And so I've been with Envision ever since. And that's been the journey and the story of how I have served this Alliance in Canada.
Wow, what an interesting journey. And we were sharing your process. I was just having one question. And how did you know that? How did you knew that you wanted to work with people? How did you know that?
It's a really good question. I wasn't aware of any assessments. And what I mean by that is any testing that you could take. There's so many available now, but I wasn't aware of any during my university life, during my co-op experiences. No one once recommended, Fran, I think you should take this assessment to find out more about what you enjoy. So at the time I was graduating university, I had to just go by my own sense of self. Like, what do I love? What gives me energy? I love people. I love meeting with them, getting to know them. I love having fun. I love bringing energy into the spaces and the rooms that I'm a part of. But I'm also really keen on the organizational aspect of how people do their jobs, what motivates them in the workplace. And so only having those few things, I went into my first career, and literally I feel like I have learned on the job ever since. I'm what's called a homegrown leader, in that I didn't go outside to be trained in any way formally. But through every experience in every organization or company I've been a part of, I have been keenly observant and have learned by doing. And so now I have had the opportunity to do many, many assessments. StrengthsFinder is one of them. The Enneagram is another. The Myers-Briggs, the 16 personalities, even spiritual gift testings. And so I'm so much more aware of what I'm strong in and also where my weaknesses are. And that has been so formative in my leadership journey, but also in the way that I lead.
So should we say, like, you are interested in helping people to find a purpose in life at somehow?
You know what? That's a very natural byproduct of my interest in people. Yes. But is that something that I would hold up on the front page of my resume? I don't know. But definitely an interest in people and understanding their heart and understanding the intersection of how God might be uniquely wiring them, but also what is the purpose for which God has made them. That is definitely a passion of mine.
Wow, that makes my heart beat so fast. And should we like say this is you feel that this is your God's call? This is what God called you to do, or what you would like share with us, or what do you think is that for you?
I know every person's journey and unique path in whatever they sense is God's call in their life is so different. And for me, I have never been the one to plan ahead too far. I was never one to sit down and write out my life plan or even a 5-year plan or a 10-year plan. I literally just kind of have lived open-handed, and I like to say I go with God's flow, you know? So I feel like I am where I am simply by entering into the next door that has opened for me. I don't always seek it out or search for it, but I'm really present in whatever opportunity I find myself in. And it's been a journey. It hasn't been easy. Sometimes it's really difficult to hear and discern God's voice from my own voice or my own selfish ambitions or even others' voices for my life. But I've been so blessed to have parents actually who have supported me, even at 27 years old, at the kind of peak of, you know, the direction of where your whole life might take you. I remember telling them after my recruitment firm stint saying, I think God's calling me to serve the church. Like, what do you think? And I know that's not the case for everybody, where they have family members who wholeheartedly support them and bless them and trust them to do what God is leading them to do. But that was a huge part of my journey of just the release from my parents at that time. And then ever since, just really feeling like God has led every step of the way, including the detours as well.
Wow, you mentioned something really, really important too, that the family is like important. They play an important role in all of this ministry life, right? Or
It
just
is, yes.
exactly. So,
Yeah,
oh my goodness. So this is interesting, and your story. I kind of got to know you, and I kind of like read how you are, but getting to know you a little bit more is like so much interesting. And let me share or say hi to the people who is joining us. Let's
sure.
say the ones that I are like David Paxol. He was one of our special guests too. Grace Mateo. Let us know, people, where you are from. Manuel from Colombia, I guess. And let's see. And I know at YouTube there's Elizabeth Miño too. So hi, Elizabeth. Thank you for joining us today and for being interested on getting to know Francis. So you are in this part, like, okay, not planning too much, like,
Hmm.
more willing to hear God's voice in your life and
Hmm.
where He's leading you, right? So do you think that how is that for, because, can you, okay, let's share with us more about what are you involved right now? We know you are the Envision director from Canada, and
Yes,
okay, so we would like to know more because some people might not know yet
yes.
what
Okay,
it is and all of that.
sure. Okay. So first, let me just start off by saying I feel like I started in Envision, and to me at that time, 6 years ago, it felt like God was pulling together different pieces of my life that I was only just discovering as something to hold on to. So I knew I loved working with people. I knew that I loved serving Jesus and representing him in those ways. And I also knew that I had an interest in organizations and how things work within a structured place. And I also loved the local church, as I had served there as a local pastor at one point. And so I feel like serving in Envision brings together all of those things. And I've learned so much more even from saying yes to Envision since then, by all the unique team members that God has brought. And so one thing I will say is not only is Envision a startup also in the broader family and history of the Alliance in Canada, but it has offered such incredible freedom to try things and to innovate and to really focus on what is it that would meet and serve the needs of the emerging leaders that we see all around us. So Envision in Canada, we have focused our attention and our ministry and our opportunities to those who are 18 to 35 years old right now here in Canada. But also what we do is our vision and our mission is to really identify who they are, to equip and develop them as best we can, but then to also launch them into the things that God has already planted as seeds within them. So we do that in a few significant and important ways. One is through missional engagements. And so we do facilitate short-term trips and internships as well as semester programs in various parts of our world and in Canada. But we also do a 1 week leadership conference. And this is something that Jen Scapins and I collaborated on with our teams a couple of times, where we would meet in a city location anywhere, usually either in New York or Montreal in the past. And we would have a 1 week leader development conference where we'd gather all of these like-minded young emerging leaders, and we would see what God would do in that environment. We introduced things like the Creative Challenge, which in the world is very known as like a hackathon design sprint event where problem solving and ideas are brought together. And we experimented in the ministry context. How would that work? But then recently in the COVID period where none of that is happening, we're not gathering like we used to, we're not going off into different parts of the world like we used to. The Greenhouse Mentoring Initiative was one thing that we started and discerned even before COVID, but we now had space to test it and to pilot with 20 of our young leaders. What is mentoring, the role of mentoring in a season like COVID, where everything is rising to the surface, the hidden things, the revealed things, and we're all grappling and feeling really disoriented? How would mentoring really meet a need in a time like this? And so Greenhouse was launched not only to facilitate one-on-one mentors, but also to match people who were like-minded, to come around a missional project together, and then 3 times in a semester to come all together to actually interact and engage and to learn from each other. And so we started the pilot earlier I'm losing track of time. Yeah, it was this year. We started the pilot earlier this year, and we've just recently discerned to scale back and just facilitate and launch the one-on-one this fall. So we're eager to do that. It starts next Saturday, and that's been the focus really of Envision this last year.
Wow, that's so interesting. So you are about to start this project next week. And yeah, I believe that those gathering, that these connections and gathering between the Envision USA and Envision Canada are powerful. And those are such great ideas. And that will be, it's great to, to gather young people, because sometimes they feel like they have no places where to get together, and that's great.
True.
Oh, that's
very true.
Awesome. And so, why are you doing this? We know you love recruiting people, you love organization, you love God's plans. Is that the reason that you are doing this, or of course you love God and you love people? So why could you share with our Globally family why you are doing this?
Well, I can speak to our context, and even before Envision began, we knew that we were faced with a leadership crisis, and this isn't unique to us in Canada. I know that everywhere, especially when it comes to our Christian context, the world has changed so much, and it's no longer norm that we have believers all around us, or people who readily understand who Jesus is and then can fully embrace the way of Jesus. And so I think even before we launched Greenhouse, there was a survey that my colleague Ben initiated for young leaders across Canada. And we simply asked them, 1, what is one leadership struggle that you're faced with? 2, do you feel well supported in your context, whether it's in the local church or otherwise? And then 3, who have been mentors that you have looked to in season or out of season? And so we really, by asking those questions, wanted to understand real time, where are our young leaders at? What are the hard issues that they're faced with? And how can we as a national initiative come alongside and really create something that would meet or help to meet some of those needs? And so what we found is, and it's still kind of something that we're processing and trying our best to discern through, but at the heart of all the responses is a real, tangible, heartfelt desire to connect with those who are older or wiser or more experienced, a wise counsel or a guide from somebody who's walked this journey before, maybe not in the same ways, but can really offer their time, their attention, their listening ears, and also more importantly, their prayers. And so that was kind of the impetus and the heart around launching something like Greenhouse. How can we match young leaders who are hungry for this with older, wiser leaders? And not always older. Sometimes they're the same age or even younger, but somebody who has the capacity and the interest and the desire to come alongside for an intentional season of mentoring. And even in the pilot, we saw such beautiful connections in the most crazy ways, outside of the traditional Christian ways, even. I remember one of the most exciting kind of, connects that we found was there was a young leader who's really passionate about music and would DJ along the side, as part of his life and something that he was interested in that gave joy and life to him. And then there was a pastor who was feeling, I don't know if I have the capacity really for this. But then as soon as he heard that this person was a DJ and he himself used to be like a rapper and a performer and an artist in that way, it was beautiful. The connection, but also the season of mentoring that they both exchanged one another. And sometimes that's the thing. It's not always the traditional kind of routes of mentorship and what you might be used to. That word has been overused. It's simply coming alongside and seeing whether or not there's a heart passion that's aligned. Maybe there's an interest, and then the questions will flow. And I think that's what this generation most needs right now, an attentive ear, a listening heart. And that's why right now we're doing this. That's why it's a focus and a priority.
Wow, so interesting. So it's like connecting people. And can you share any highlight from this experience because I don't hear too much that, the Alliance is doing in their local country or at their country. So any highlight that you might want to share about any very great experience or testimony, or I don't know, something really incredible that maybe you wasn't expecting, or yes, you were expecting, but you were facing or living or experiencing.
Sure. I think that's one of the adventurous aspects of doing what we do and doing what we get to do, is we actually get to observe and see things unfold even beyond what we had hoped for or planned. I remember when we first launched Envision Summit in Montreal for the very first time on our own as a Canadian Envision team, and the introduction of something like the Creative Challenge. It brought people from all across our country together, not only in an environment where they could actually meet one another, but then we saw people light up as they were walked through a process from beginning stage of how do you form an idea to all the way to the end where they're presenting in front of a live panel of experts what their ideas are on how to solve a particular missional project. And one person comes to mind. We've actually featured her on our Instagram as well. Her name's Chloe. And she came from BC, and she was in a season of discernment. And she was part of a team that was working on a particular project related to the second daughter crisis in India. And we didn't know that she had a call in her life previously for midwifery, but she was asking God the question, how would you use that in my life? And yet here this environment was created where she was now working on a particular project where they brought midwifery in that context to serve second daughters who are usually not valued and cast aside. And that has now changed the trajectory of where she will go and pursue midwifery as her career and her calling. And she has India in her heart as well, the people and the nation and the culture there. And so that's a God thing. That's something we couldn't have anticipated. And that's just one example. I remember another is a really quiet second generation Chinese young leader who came to Summit, and her personality was just very tender and very meek. And yet when we saw her on stage presenting her group's project, she just came alive, and she commanded such authority, spiritual authority, and she spoke with such clarity and passion that there were tears in our eyes as we watched her. And so again, it reminded me, my goodness, our young people just need a space to thrive, to be given the opportunity to shine, and we might not know their readiness, but that push and that gentle invitation can sometimes unearth in them what the Spirit of God already has planted there. And so she's somebody that we track with regularly. She's actually a nurse full time, and she's on that journey of discerning how, Lord, will you continue to use my professional background for your ministry context. So it's exciting.
Wow. And that might be like life change experience for them as well, I believe, because,
Yes.
having this space and this experience.
Absolutely. And we don't do it alone. So I don't want to make any, statement that we alone are doing this and there isn't partners along the way, like local church pastors and mentors in your local church. It's a collective effort. We're just part of catalyzing those environments where that first start could maybe take place that otherwise might not have. So we're extremely grateful for our alliance pastors and our local churches and our international workers too, who have said yes to leaning in to serve alongside us. So we're grateful for that.
So you're joining efforts and creating these spaces for them. Oh, that's so neat, and that makes it unique and like this unforgettable experience for them as well. Because being more connected with their local churches, with their pastors, and I believe that's a very great engineering experience for them.
Yes. And I mean, I could share a lot about what we have learned that wasn't so positive, right? Like it's a mix of both, and we learn from that and we open ourselves up to feedback. I think that's another key thing. We don't want to assume anything, but what are our young leaders' experiences actually? What are the gaps that they see? What are the ideas that they have that we can then hopefully implement as we receive their feedback and input? And it's not just limited to young leaders too. What's the feedback of our local church's experience of us? I know it's hard sometimes to put your hands around what Envision Canada is about, but as they engage and as we converse, hopefully that understanding and clarity becomes more readily apparent.
Wow, yeah, that would be like me as a local as a local pastor would be also okay, just wondering and trying this new and here and there, but for sure a blessing for them as well, and for them to have that opportunity for being a blessing to like not just with their local people, but opening more opportunities for their people, for their people, no?
Absolutely.
For example, your ministry or Envision is mostly centered on young people, right? Is like trying to connect them and to find their path in God's life and all that He wants for them. And so how you might encourage them to be like, for example, there might be people that probably don't know, or just thinking about people that might not have Envision at their country or places where they are, but they somehow would like to have these connections or opportunities, and how you might advise them, or how could you encourage them to do this?
That's a really good question, especially in a time like this. I am fully aware that especially young people, I mean, lots of people, everyone all around, but particularly young people are faced with lots of barriers, lots of challenges. And COVID has magnified, a lot of that. And some of you listening in or tuning in might be feeling like I can barely even survive, let alone think about what my career path or my calling or what, my passions are. And if that's you, I would just say, take a breath, and as you breathe in and as you breathe out, may the ministry of God's Spirit in that breath just give you the rest that you need and the peace in your mind and in your soul that you need. I think it's often, it takes energy to think about the future. It takes energy to think about what your life is about and your purpose and desire. And there is seasons in our lives where that's really easy and natural to do. But I just sense like right now we're collectively in a season where we're barely hanging on. Some of us are just feeling so discouraged and disoriented. I'm there too. I don't want to give off any false impressions that I don't also have my own questions of God. Like, what are you doing? What are you doing in my life? What are you doing in our organization? What will you do in our world when we see so much happening that's cracked over through the surface this past year? And I think my encouragement always will be to myself and to anyone that I talk to is to come back to who Jesus is. I am reading in the gospel what Jesus has said. I am reading the exchanges that Jesus has with not only his disciples, but the people he meets along the way. And when I see how Jesus models humility and mercy and grace, and yet carries the authority of God too, to be present in those places. Just this past Monday, we had a prayer time in our national office, and the theme of the fragrance of Christ. Who are you, even as you're struggling? What fragrance do you give off? Is it one of Christ, or is it one of the world? You know, and it's okay to struggle through. But I think coming back to the heart of why we believe what we believe, who are we, and who are we called to be? We can find it in no other place except in Jesus. And so my encouragement would be to saturate yourself in the Gospels, saturate yourself in the scriptures. What are the things that God first breathed into your life, even before when he first came and called you into being part of his family, when he first saved you by his grace? Recall those scriptures, recall those instances, and hold on to them in seasons like this where it's really hard to even think to yourself and recognize why. What am I holding on for? You know, when everywhere else I see crumbling and fragmentation and continued disorientation. But this is where I feel this generation is particularly and uniquely positioned to be the ones that might embrace a different kind or a different form of the kingdom of God that our previous generations have set us up to do. So that is my pleading and my encouragement to the young leaders here in Canada, but all around the world. Hang on, but know who you're hanging on to and to what you're hanging on for. And you can only find that in the ministry of Jesus through his Spirit and through his word and through wise counsel and the community and the voices that you hear. And so for me, it means taking regular times off away from social media or away from reading the news and just soaking and finding God's voice in the midst of it, slowing myself down and recalling to my mind, God, I remember when you first saved me. I remember when you plucked me out of that dark situation and brought me into your wonderful light. And again, would be my encouragement to and I don't know if I'm frozen with you.
I'm here. So, yeah, that's wonderful. You know, to take this quiet time and read the Bible and listen to God. You know, because there's so much noise around, and you know, too many things going on, and at the same time, not too many things going on. You know, and like okay, to remember and take back to our roots. You know, that's wonderful, and that's really great advice, and how we can remembering why we are here, and you know the reason, the reason, and our purpose here too. You know, because sometimes, as you were mentioning before, we might sometimes feel isolated, like lonely, like you know. With in many different hard situations, but remembering that.
Yes, we're in a time of loss and grieving and mourning and lamenting, and it's okay to do that and to meet Jesus in that. And I just want to say, like, we're not going to show up in the environments that we're in the same ways as previous generations might have. And I think that's also really necessary and okay, you know? And so how do we be the fragrance of Christ? How do we show up as humble and extend mercy and grace, but in a way that maybe is unique to this generation, you know, because we care. We care about the injustices that are happening around us. We care about the issues that are happening in our world. And we might just show up in a different kind of way. And I think God has prepared us for that.
Yeah. And how are you envisioning the near future for your ministry or for young people? Like, I know you just mentioned it that you don't like to do these bigger plans and anything like that, but this near future, what are you expecting? What is your hope for this near future?
First of all, I just want to say I'm so thankful for the team that I get to serve alongside. I learned so much from my colleagues, and I learned so much from the organization and our leaders too. And I think right now we are in a season and a time of threats all around. I think there's lots of threats related to COVID, unrelated to COVID. There's a lot of, holding on to systems and structures and status quos. And there's a really sense of urgency of wanting to break through and break forward and create something new. There's lots of tensions. There's lots to feel discouraged about or to feel even disunited in. But I think my hope, and I use that word really carefully because, it's easy to just hope and not be grounded in a sense of reality. But my hope is that we stay true, we stay firm, and we endure. We endure even when we don't see evidence for a reason to hope, in our context. That we dig deep and we pull and we grasp and hold on to what we do know for sure. And I think my hope is that as we do that and as we model that, and as we take action on that, even individually, that we will begin to see the contagious spirit of God at work through those actions. And so I think the wise counsel of, speak less, listen first, keep your eyes wide open, it requires eyes of faith. This is not a natural, skill nor ability. It requires supernatural divine encounter. And so that is my hope, that as we seek Jesus, as we open ourselves up to be encountered by him, that his love, his mercy, his grace will fuel us to endure and to show up in the spaces that we're called to and carry that fragrance of love that he calls us to. So.
Wow. So like be grounded, right? Like, yeah. Okay, many things going around, but like being grounded really gives us that hope that we, yeah. And that at the same time, that strength that we might need, in these times. So that's
absolutely.
We were like also checking out the people that is watching us, and they are listening at you. For example, Ben Secure, he's like there's people from Ecuador too, from Machala, Iglesia Villaflora. So thank you for being there. Envision CMA. Sending blessings from Canada. So thank you so much for being there. And if you have any questions for Frances, you can ask her. She's like a very interesting person to get to know, and it's an honor for us to have her here in our last Instagram live for the year. So it is like wonderful to close these Instagram lives with you and to get to know you more. And we were like also listening about or reading about your bio, and that you like it. Different things. Okay, we would like to know more. Besides that, we already read what you like to do in, for example, I can tell in your like free time, or you like to have time for being with God and getting to know more and being more rooted with him. And are there any other things that help you getting down, like not besides reading the Bible, of course, and spend time with the Lord? Is there any other things that really helps you to do that?
Yeah. You know what? It's so interesting because if it wasn't for COVID, I would not have gotten to know 9 moms. These are moms in my daughter's school. And now we have journeyed over this past year and a half together. We have gone out on hikes and fun nights together. We have arranged play dates together. And these are most people who don't share the same faith as I do. And that has been so invigorating to be in their presence, to engage in conversations, to ask them, what are your joys and your challenges? You know, and that has been a reinvigorating part of understanding, okay, this Christian bubble that I might live in has a limit, you know. And I think the other part is to also get to know my next door neighbor more than I ever have, you know, to understand her heart and what's important to her and engage in that way. I remember being in an an intensive recently, and Dave Overholt, who's a professor at Tyndale University and a longtime pastor, he's been in ministry for 30 years at the same church in Hamilton, Ontario. And one of his points was, what would it look like if Christians were just 10% more friendly? What would it look like if all of us just opened ourselves up to see, I can be 10% more friendly and engage with that cashier, or ask a question with the person that's standing in line, or as I walk by this person, just say, good morning, you know? And what would it look like if we opened ourselves up for those opportune times where God may already be at work, but we're just not sensitive to hear or to see how he is at work? And not all of them are going to engage in spiritual conversations right away, but you just never know. And I think in the absence of having those kinds of outlets, but also inlets for us, then our Christian walk becomes self-serving, and it becomes stagnant, and it becomes stale. We need the breath of God, and we need the relationships, and we need to engage in our context in the world, in where he has placed us, so that we are continuously reinvigorated again and again of who Christ is, what he has done, and how we might share that with others around us.
Wow, it's so interesting, right? Like these small things, like saying hi to an strange, like or being kind at some point, like helping somebody doing any certain things. Really, that's interesting. Because sometimes, we're in our bubble, and people really appreciate when we are, this friendly, or connecting them. And wow, that's really interesting. Because I like people too, and I like to be friendly, but sometimes I'm like, okay, should I or should I not?
Exactly. And we all feel that way, right? And I am naturally also very friendly, but I'm not the one that's always waving at people, right? But when that time comes, it's surprising what the response is. You know, we talk about isolation and loneliness. We don't know their stories. We don't know our encounter, where they're at. And yet to have someone extend that attention and that time, I think God uses that. God uses those moments.
Yeah, for sure. And we don't even know these seeds that we are planting sometimes, we never know.
That's right. That's right.
And what do you like to do on your free time? Like, what are your hobbies? What is, for example, if you are reading, what is the book that you like the most, that you might, because I might find interesting, like if you're a people person, probably you are like connecting with people in this particular or different ways too. I don't know, yes, wondering.
So interesting. Okay, so first, yes, I'm a people person and I like being active. And so I love, especially now that my kids are at an age where they can go on bike rides all together, or we can go explore a different hiking trail. Those I love. But because I expend so much energy at work or with people that I engage with socially here and there, one thing recently, and I have it right here, that I just discovered that I am going to now probably do more and more is I painted this. But the thing is, this is a paint by numbers thing. So, like, I'm not an artist. I need to paint by numbers to produce something like this. But I have this here because it's so beautiful, and it reminds me of a special time that I shared with a friend of mine recently where we did this while talking, but I finished it on my own at home. And sometimes extroverts just need some intro time, and for me, that's either horizontal time where I'm resting, not necessarily sleeping, but just, decompressing my days, or picking up something like this. That's a creative outlet and just reminds me so much of how meaningful it can be just to be quiet, and to attend and pay attention to something really, really mundane and yet produces something so beautiful. So, yeah.
Sometimes it's like you are rediscovering yourself too, like,
That's right.
oh, I didn't know that I was able to do this or
Yes.
to do that. Really?
And this is so small, but it took 5 hours. It's a long time, right? So it's a lot of, yes, it's a lot of centering time, which for someone like me is really helpful.
Yeah, and it's so pretty, really. I love it.
Thank
Oh,
you.
wow. It is so pretty. So here in YouTube, we also have people from India. We have
Wow.
Jakub Christie, and he's like saying hi from the CMA India. So you were mentioning India, so there's somebody
Yes.
from there.
Amazing.
Yeah, so he's mentioning it is very encouraging. So thank you so much, Pastor, for being with us, and also Elizabeth and Grace Novoa. She's also watching us on YouTube. So thank you so much, guys, for being there and getting to know our special guest. So, and we are just reaching the end of our Instagram live. So for sure we're going to miss you, but is there anything, for example, we are addressing these AWF Instagram Lives for youth all around the globe, with different contexts, with different, even though sometimes it's the same, but in every country it's particular, and it is different at the same time. So how might you would like to advise or share with them, like thinking about them? What would you tell them if if you might have an opportunity to be surrounded by a group of people from different places and to add value to them? What you might share with them, what you might tell them, or what you would like to know from them?
Yeah, it blows my mind that this is a connection all around the world, and it's made possible through these means, and AWS being so strategically positioned to be a gathering place for young people, and as I think about that, I think about how connected we actually have become, that we do have the technology, but also we have the means to continue to reach out. This journey of faith is difficult. It's extremely uncomfortable at times, and it was never designed to be something that we do alone. And so even if maybe in your local context, you don't readily see someone that you can reach out to ask for help, or to sit down with you and to walk through whatever it is or issue or struggle that you're dealing with, to recognize actually all around the world, there is a network of young leaders who might be facing very similar, if not the same struggles, but in a different context. And how might we learn through that connection if it's formed? And so I'm hopeful, Eunice, that you and Jura and Beatrice and our Envision office, and even the one that Jen leads in the States, and who knows, whatever other ministries, that we can start putting some intention behind creating those spaces for our global young leaders that are all connected all around the world in the Alliance family, to begin to strategically connect together, to offer encouragement, to spur one another on, to hopefully one day even meet, in person at one of your local Alliance churches. Like, how amazing would that be? But I think the seeds are already being planted for that. So how can we be listening and watchful, but also put planning and intention around doing that? And so just know you're not alone, and you are connected, and God has you where you are for a purpose. And so we will do our best to try to listen, but also to mobilize and catalyze those kinds of global connections that I think we need right now.
Yeah, that would be interesting, and that sense of belong, that we belong to a global family, the Alliance family, and that we are connected through, Instagram, through Facebook, YouTube, through our news. So you can get to know more about every place, and that somehow being connected, and especially youth, because when you are young, sometimes you are here and there, and it is very special. And that's one of the intentions as well from AWF. So thank you so much, Francis, for being with us.
Thank you.
we would like to have you and meet in person at some point or one day. That
I'm
would
like believing in faith that's going to happen, Eunice.
Thank you so much. And if you would like to share something else with us, before that, I would like also to invite to all of our people that is watching us or listening to us that we are going to have our AWF quadrennial convocation back in October, now in October in Ecuador. So you are all invited. You have all the information in our website, in our social media platforms. So that will be nice to connect with you there and to see you in person. Registration closes at September 3rd, so please don't wait until the last day to join us. But
Did you mean October 3rd? You said September
September,
3rd. Did you mean October 3rd?
no, September 3rd.
Oh, so it's past.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
okay. Don't
So
delay, everybody.
yes, so we really hope to see you there and to get to know you all, because I was also checking out, we had people from Panama, from
Nice.
Colombia connecting, so that's really, really nice. And thank you for being with us. So,
Thank you.
Francis, any final words from you? Words from you?
Oh, I feel like I've done all the talking here. But just, it's been a joy to be with you, Eunice. I know our relationship just began recently. I'm so looking forward to working actually with you to maybe bring some of the things and the ideas to fruition that we've talked about, specifically addressing the needs of our young alliance leaders all around the world. But I am so thankful to every single one of you that not only has tuned in live, but also who might look at this afterwards. I am grateful for the Lord for bringing us together in this unique season and this time. And I pray that you are encouraged wherever you are to endure in the faith that God has given to you and to open wide your eyes, your ears, and your heart to perceive the things that He is doing right there in your midst. So He is faithful and He is good. So let's praise Him together.
Thank you so much, Francis. And please, you feel free to follow Envision CMA Instagram page. They are always sharing very nice content and information for you. So please follow them. And thank you, Francis, once again for your time and also your team that were
Thank
behind
you.
this
Yes,
team.
I am nothing without my team. Thank you, team.
So
Thank
thank you so
you.
much, guys, and hope to see you next year with the part 2 of this AWF Instagram Live. So thank you so much for connecting. See you
Awesome.
soon.
Bye,
Bye bye.
everybody. Thank you.